What's up, brothers and sisters? It's your brother G World 7_D. Now here's the book, Hebrewism of West Africa, from now to Niger with the Jews. Now, if you go online and look at this book, you find many different reviews of it, and as usual, you have one person who reviewed it claiming that this book is anti-Semitic because it creates nonsense and it claims that black people were so-called Jews. Whatever, man. The Hebraic people were Negroes. I mentioned that redundantly in past videos, but we're going to have to really study the history of so-called black people globally. So I'm going to turn to page 98 of this book. All right, page 98 of this book. And talks about here as black Jews. All right, and I'm going to read from there instead of just hold this up. I'm going to put it up a little bit, but then I'm just reading most of it. All right. Writing of this same distinct district, John Clark, a missionary, says that the extreme south of French Equatorial Africa, Odendrope, speaks of black Jews being in this part of Africa, but no confirmation of this has been met with. The practices common in many parts of Africa are those of sacrificing goats and sheep, making cutting for the dead, circumcising, and the trial drink. But these do not particularly belong to the customs of the Jews. Here again, the statement of fact is useful as it is not written to bolster up the theory. Frederick Ratzel, too, refers to the Mavumba, renowned as potters and smiths, to whom some assign a Jewish origin, and probably with reason, in the instance attribute the Jewish influence to the Portuguese Jews who at their expulsion from Europe were forcibly colonized at St. Thomas. J. Leighton Wilson, who for 18 years was a missionary in Africa and subsequently one of the secretaries of the American Presbyterian Board of Foreign Missions, gave to the public the fruit of his experience. And after making due acknowledgment in his preface of the works he had consulted, adds, but the great body of the book is the result of the writer's own observation and knowledge, and it is presented to the public as such. Particular value, then, must be attached to the following observations. Whether the natives of the country have the Jewish distinction between Diabola and Damona in northern Guinea is not certainly known, but the inhabitants of southern Guinea undoubtedly have, and a few pages later, mixed up with these pagan notions and customs, there are many obvious traces of Judaism, both in northern and southern Guinea, and in the latter, some undoubtedly traces of a corrupt form of Christianity, which have probably traveled across the continent from ancient Ethiopia, where Christianity was once firmly established. The African race have a wonderful capacity for conforming themselves to any circumstances in which they are placed, and they can adopt almost any number of religious creeds without being disturbed by their incongruity or the direct antagonistic character which may exist in them. The religion of Senegambia is a complete melody of paganism, Judaism, and Mohammedanism. All right? Let me get it good. The religion of Senegambia is a complete melody of paganism, Judaism, and Mohammedanism. And it is difficult to say which of these three occupies the most prominent place or exerts the greatest influence upon the character of the people. The prevailing philosophy on the subject is that by combining the three, they are sure to secure the aggregate good of the whole. In northern Guinea, paganism and Judaism are united. And in southern Guinea, paganism and Judaism, and some imperfect traces of corrupt form of Christianity. In the former region, the country Judaism is more prominently developed, some of the leading features of which are circumcision, the division of tribes into separate families, and very frequently into a number 12, the rigid interdiction of marriage between families too nearly related, bloodly sacrifices, with the sprinkling of blood upon the altar and doorposts, a specified time for mourning the dead, during which they shave their heads and wear soiled and tattered clothes, demonical possessions, purification, and various other uses, probably of Jewish origin. Some of these uses, especially the rite of circumcision, might be supposed to have been Mohammedan origin, if it were not for the entire absence of all other traces of the religion amongst the pagan tribes of both Guineas. Although the natives of Africa retain their outward rites and ceremonies with the utmost tenacity, they have little or no knowledge of their origin or particular object which they are intended to commemorate. Many of them are performed to shield themselves from some threatened evil or to secure some coveted good. But in the great majority of cases, they are attended to merely as a matter of habit, and the only reason assigned for observing them is that their ancestors did the same before them. Another witness who spent 7 years among the blacks of the slave coast is equally positive in his assertion. After remarking the D'Anville's map, states that the country of the Nagos was formerly inhabited by Jews, and that this view was adopted by Edris, an Arab traveler of the 11th century. He briefly adds, one finds amongst the blacks many Jewish customs. Let me get a good clear of this. One finds among the blacks, here it is, right here. One finds among the blacks many Jewish customs. Alright, I'm going to stop right there, man. This is from the book Hebrewism of West Africa. Now, this book talks about many different practices, even with the so-called, what the Ashanti does, that they have like possibly Jewish origins, and other groups that was in West Africa. But I mentioned before, you have the Beta Israel, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, the so-called Falashas, or they are of Jewish origin, and obviously, you know, the Limba or the Lamba of Southern Africa. Then you have the brothers and sisters in India, and then you have the Hebrewism blacks who are in here, the Aboriginal blacks here in North America. You had Hebrewism over here too, the Hebrew people over here too. Now, using the term Jew, that's more of a relative newer term. These are basically Hebrew people or Hebrew people. These are like I said, those are the black people. All right, these current people call themselves Jews. These white people who hijack the true origin of the way of life, of the people, and of the culture, and now they've stolen it. And the reason I'm highlighting this book because there's plenty of documentation that the original Hebrew or the Hebrewic people were Negroes, were melanated people, were black people. Not only in the continent of Ethiopia or Libya or Amanis or what is now Africa, you had so-called black people who were Hebraic people globally. And you also had, like I said, Islam among black people globally. Or in this book, you use the term Mohammedanism. But the point is that I'm stating that this movie, Hebrews to Negroes, I haven't seen it. I'm going to try to view it. But that is the main reason they're getting mad, because the guy there says that the Hebrews are Negroes. And there's so much documentation to say that the original people were Negroes. The original people were black. So this is something I just wanted to highlight. I may pull up, show you Nasser, like I said, the former president of Egypt, in which he stated the Jews left Africa as black and only returned as white. Okay, people know that these people are not the original people. They're pale-skinned people. They are Ashkenazi Jews. They're white, and they're liars. But they sit up there and attack anyone who challenged their lies. But they're not only lying about being the original so-called Jewish people or the people of the so-called Bible. They have used that lie to whiten up North Africa, whiten up Asia, the indigenous people of Asia, and distort and whiten up or mongoloid up the aboriginal, or to rob away the aboriginal black culture and people, erase them out of the history or bury it. A lot of them scholars, like I mentioned before, were white Jewish scholars, man. They have done this, man. And I'm not the only one who've mentioned this. They have done this in the past, and they continue to do this today because they want to put in their fictional history, connect their fictional history to our historical history. We are the historical people of all these stories, but they are fictional people, but they want to link them stuff onto our historical history and culture. And they have done this, man, and it's disgusting. And this is really pissing me off because our people need to know this. This information is in your face or it's right under your nose, but you have to do the research. Like I said, I've had a leg up on this, but this information is there. You have to do the research. Hebrewism in West Africa. Like I said, you look at some of the reviews online, and then you get one of these white Jews come on there and they said the book is anti-Semitic because anything that says that black people are the original Jews or were Jews anyway, then it's anti-Semitic. Now, I already told you, Semitic has nothing to do with no damn race. It's freaking languages. That's what it is, languages. So you anti-somebody's language. That's all. You hear that mess, anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism. All they just saying that you anti their so-called language. That's what Semitic is, man. All right? That's what Semitic is. It's not a race. It's part of a language family. And then within these Semitic people, like I said, Arabs are Semitic people too. So this is, it's Arabic's a Semitic language too. So this is a joke, man. They're not Shemitic. They're white folks. And like I said, I personally don't do this Bible stuff like that. All that ham, sham stuff. But I know ham is cam and all that stuff is Kemet. And I know that their white asses had nothing to do with anything. Their white asses come from the Russian steppes. Their white asses are pale-skinned people riding the damn horses. Nomadic as hell. They weren't situated in no one land. They're from Central Asia. That's where their culture. That's where they from. That's where they basically came about as, over in Central Asia, not in no place where they at now in the area of Israel. They're not indigenous to that damn land. So to listen to these Negroes on ESPN is sickening. It just tells you how ignorant they are, and they keep using the same talking points. The book makes some, or the movie makes some crazy statements. Like I said, I haven't seen the movie, but it just seems like the big deal is that it's saying that black people are the real Jews or the Hebrew people, and that bothers these white folks because now that you know the truth, you just see them for what they are. Perpetrating frauds and imposters. That's all they are. So, I wanted to say that, brothers and sisters. Man, I haven't filmed a lot of damn videos, man. I haven't filmed this many videos in a while, man. But my calling is this. You want to do something? Call for the firing of ESPN's president. He has to go because all this stuff is going on during his tenure. Call for the firing of the president of ESPN. Get that guy out of there. Because Jalen Rose ass had to apologize over bringing up the woman's name should be brought up in the brother's case, who was formerly the Boston Celtics coach, now with the Brooklyn Nets, and that Malika Andrews chick bringing this rabbi and stuff. Call for the firing of the president of ESPN and the firing of all the top people over at ESPN. Call for their firing. Because this racial nonsense is going on heavily. They're attacking the black community. They're attacking particularly black men. They need to be fired. That president of ESPN, I'm really pushing this, needs to be fired, as well as a lot of those top people on that board need to be fired. Him and the rest of those top people on that board needs to be fired on ESPN. All of them have to go. Because what is going on ESPN is disgusting. They have to be fired. They have to go. Get rid of them. All of them, man. Put pressure on their ass. They need to go. President of ESPN, I'm going to say this again, and them board members there need to be fired. Peace.